Okay, so now GCP has solutions for unstructured data, structured data, as well as semi-structured data. So what are the solutions for structured data? There are two basically. One is called as cloudsql, the name of the service. Second is called as Cloud Spanner. Okay, we'll discuss about Cloud Spanner in the next session. Today's class will focus more on cloudsql. These both solutions are basically to manage structured data. Okay, now you guys know what is a relational database. Okay, so and we'll discuss about what is a relational data. We'll discuss about RTO, RPO, a simple vertical versus horizontal scaling. The reason why I put this vertical versus horizontal scaling, because there are two solutions, right? One is Cloud Spanner and one more is Cloud SQL. So this is actual difference. Cloud SQL only supports vertical scaling. Cloud Spanner supports horizontal scaling as well. So for us to understand what are those things, just a brief introduction about vertical scaling and horizontal scaling, and we'll understand what is availability and durability. We'll understand in a relational data what is OLTP, what is OLAP. Okay, now because you guys know what is OLAP and OLTP, I'm just going to run this through. So OLTP is basically for your online transaction processing where your end user is served. That means, let's say I'm using a phone pay and I'm sending you 10,000 rupees. Okay, now first of all, as soon as I go to phone pay, it will do multiple things. First of all, it will check whether I have the 10,000 balance or not, and it will see whether you are also having a phone pay app or not, or whether you're eligible to receive the money or not. Okay, and then it will move from my account to your account, and it will update in your account there is 10,000. I mean, it will do a plus of 10,000 balance to your current balance, whatever it is there. Okay, now most of the companies or all the companies don't want to or they want this process to be very faster, then only they can attract a lot of customers. So all the relational databases, they support OLTP, that is online transaction processing. Now there is other thing on the back end as well. Now there are a lot of product managers, data scientists, data engineers. They want to understand what is there in their company's data so that they can make better sales, better finance, promote the business. A lot of things they can do with the data. Now when customer also using the database and internal customers also using the database, what happens? There'll be delay for one of the user. It could be customer, it could be internal user. So we want to separate the traffic. How? We want to use OLTP. All the customer end user transactions will be served by OLTP. All the internal customers transactions will be served by OLAP. A stands for analytic processing. T stands for transaction processing. And most of the OLTP queries will be small and fast. Okay, there'll be huge amount of small transactions. Traditionally, we refer that as a relational database management systems. Okay, now the most of the popular databases that are used in the market for OLTP is MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, SQL Server. There is Amazon Aurora that is widely used now. Okay, and there are a couple of more, very few. Okay, these are the most popular databases. Now if you want to create and these are used for ERP, CRM, banking applications. Now if you want to create this on GCP, what is the service? You have two options. One is called as Cloud Spanner or Cloud SQL. By using this Cloud Spanner or Cloud SQL, what you can create? You can create a relational database management service on GCP. Okay. Now, if that is OLTP, then what is OLAP? OLAP is basically for online analytical processing. We can simply refer that as a data warehouse. Okay. Now, every company has, let's say, if there is an application. One moment. Oh, did you guys take this? Okay. What's happening here? Now let's say if there is a company like Flipkart, okay. Now they have data in their relational database, okay, that is coming from the application. They also have their finance data from a separate application. They also have their physical warehouse data. They also have their resellers data. They also have their product data, product information. Okay, now this data, they all might not be getting from one source. They might be getting this data from source one, this data from another source, this data from another source. So now if I take my relational database, does Flipkart, does it have all its company's data in relational database? No, it does not have, because there are multiple sources where the data is generated. Now data warehouse is a collection of data from all the data sources. Okay, this is one of the challenging job of a data engineer, because now data is collected from multiple locations, from multiple applications. One of the job of a data engineer is to create this data pipeline, so to get the data to one common location, that is called as data warehouse. So if a company is there, you have your, where do you have all your company's data? All my company's data will be available in a data warehouse. Okay, all the company's data is available in a data warehouse. Now data is collected from multiple sources. Okay, now I told you that what is that, OLTP, there is a lot of small transactions, huge number of transactions, but OLAP, the number of queries would be either a one query or two query or three queries, small number of queries, but the queries would be very complex and it requires huge time to get the output. Okay, majorly used for data analysis. Now if you want to create a data warehouse on GCP, the service is called as Cloud BigQuery. It supports petabytes of data in a data warehouse, and the best part is here is that it is also connected with a BI dashboard. Google has its own BI tool called as Google Studio, where you can directly generate the reports as well. Okay, so there is something called as clickstream data, okay, which is very famous in the e-commerce industry. That is also called as web click analysis. So most of the e-commerce companies want to analyze their customers has come on to the which page of their website. That means every product has a page, right? How many customers has visited which products? Okay, now how to send them marketing material, or how to make them buy their product. Okay, all these things depends on a clickstream data or web click analysis data. Okay, now there are how we can scale a database. There are two ways. One is called as vertical scaling, second is called as horizontal scaling. Now what is a vertical scaling? It's very simple. Vertical scaling is basically let's say if I have 2 CPU RAM and two CPUs, I can increase to 4 CPU in the same server, and I can increase to 8 CPUs in the same server. That means one server only, it is becoming big. Whereas a horizontal scaling, let's say there are 2 CPUs here, I can add another server which has 2 CPUs, another server which has 2 CPUs, another server which has 2 CPUs. So basically it is the size of the database is increasing, but it is by adding more instances. But here in the same instance, the resources are increased. That is the difference between vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. Okay, the reason why I'm explaining this is because we have two types of a relational database on GCP. One is Cloud SQL, another one is Cloud Spanner. The major difference between Cloud SQL and Cloud Spanner is this. So with a Cloud Spanner, I can do this horizontal scaling. With Cloud SQL, I can only do a vertical scaling. Now there are two more terms that we need to understand. One is called as RTO, second is called as RPO. What is an RTO and RPO? RTO is basically recovery time objective. This is called as recovery point in a point objective. Okay, actually both of this refers in terms of time only. I want to change the color. Oh God. Okay, both these things are referred in terms of time only. What does this mean? Let's say I created a database. Let's say, okay, here it is there, right? Now let's say today, what is that? Now it's about 6:30 in India. Now let's say 6:30. The database crashed. Now let's say I have another database to make sure if this is crashed, I can use this. Now within how much time I can, so now let's say users are accessing from this database. Now this is crashed. Now within how much time I can access the data from this database? We have a backup, right? So this is record. This is considered as RTO. That means recovery time objective. Within how much time I can access the second data center. Then what is RPO? Now let's say this user is first of all only accessing this, right? He does not have access to this. Now let's say the last updated data, he has updated 10 at 2:29. Now if I say RPO is 1 minute and the database is crashed at 6:30. Now what data is available here? This 10 will be there in this because we are database, we have updated the data here, but now because this is crashed, I'm accessing the data from here. So will I have this data here? So RPO 1 minute means whenever the database crash, whatever the data that is available 1 minute before, that will be there. Okay, now let's say, oh, come on. Now let's say at 6:29, 15 seconds, there's a data called as 3. Okay. Now at 6:29, there's a data called as 10. Now if the database crashes at 6:30, so what is the data that is available at 6:29? This data 10 that will be available here. This data 3 will not be available because we have agreed a RPO of 1 minute. That means at any time database crashes, from the secondary database, I can access the data whichever is available 1 minute before the database went down. That is called as RPO. So there are two terms, RTO and RPO, recovery time objective and recovery point objective. Okay, now every company will have XLS to make sure that they will have understanding how the data will be available to them. Okay. Same thing I've explained. Now, what is durability? This durability means if you lose data, business is down, right? And again, no business wants to afford lose of data. I mean, they can't afford any losing any data. Now, how healthy, how resilient your data is provided? So GCP gives 99.11 times 9. See, that means what? Let's say you uploaded a data file today. Now, if you want to access that file after 1 year, is it available? Availability is one thing, but will you have the data in that file? That is nothing but durability. Okay, so it is like 99.9%, 11 times 9%. That means basically once in 10,000 years, out of 10,000 files, there is chance of losing one file. Now the next thing is called as availability. What is availability? Now if a region goes down, we have data replicated across other region. That is how the SLAs are calculated by using RPO and RTO. Okay, you'll have SLAs with every company based on RPO and RTO. Now let's say you have not configured any backup database. If a primary database goes down, it is gone because you have designed a solution in such way. GCP is not responsible for that. Okay, now we know this. Now let's go to Cloud SQL. Let us understand some features of Cloud SQL and let's do some hands-on exercise on that. Okay, now as you know that it is a fully managed relational database service. What is the meaning of managed relational database service? Now let's say if I want any database, let's say there is no cloud, then what should I do? I should basically purchase a server, purchase a license of MySQL or a SQL server from whoever is the vendor is that, or if it is a open source, install that on the server, make sure it is working, etc., etc. I have to do. But with Cloud SQL, all you need to do is that create a Cloud SQL instance and you can start directly creating any of these databases. So creating of servers, backup, configuration, all that headache is taken away by Cloud SQL. Okay, now let's say, now you can ask me a question. Now on your on-premises, you have a MySQL server. Can I do a lift and shift to Cloud SQL? Yes, you can do a lift and shift to a Cloud SQL. That means you can migrate. We'll also see how to migrate by taking a dump. Okay. Now, how much data you can store in Cloud SQL? You can store up to 30 terabytes of data. That's a huge database space. You can store up to 30 terabytes. Now, let's say for 1 year, if you're collecting around 3G, 10, let's say on top end 1 TB for 1 year. So that means you can store 30 DB of data. That means whatever data that is captured by your application for next 10-15 years, you can store it in a Cloud SQL. Okay, now that is about storage. Then what about the processing? You can scale up to 96 cores for your performance and 416 RAM memory or cache memory, so that it will be extremely faster. Now you see, this is only supporting vertical scaling. There is no horizontal scaling in Cloud SQLs. Okay, when you're planning for any environment, if you have to use GCP, now if you have to speak to your customer saying that, hey, now database, what should we use, Cloud SQL or Cloud Spanner? What is the differentiator? What is the differentiator between both of them? One differentiator is this. Second one, cost, which is more costly. Cloud Spanner is more costly than a Cloud SQL. So when you're designing for the first time, these are the things that you need to consider. How much data is there presently? How much data you're expecting next year, 5 years down the line? Based on that, you have to design a solution. And encryption is also possible with the help of Google. Now, Cloud SQL can be accessed from anywhere, like your app engines, compute engine. Okay, app engine is like a PaaS service on GCP. Compute engine is nothing but a virtual machine. Okay. Now, what is the use of Cloud SQL? We know that it is used for storing a relational database or a OLTP, which is a transactional database, like for e-commerce, CRM kind applications. Those are some of the applications. Now, a couple of advantages of using Cloud SQL. There is no maintenance. We don't need to update. You know, when we maintain SQL servers, right, a lot of times we have to weekends there'll be patching, there'll be updates, etc., maintenance, downtime, and all. With Cloud SQL, you don't need to worry. GCP takes care of all the maintenance work. You don't need to employ any people on that. Okay. Backup database, on-demand backup, schedule backup. That means I can say once in every 2 hours, once in an hour, once in a day, once in 15 days, database backup has to happen. It will automatically. Okay. And we have a database migration service. Migrate data from different SQL system to a Cloud SQL by using DMS. And we have points in time recovery. That means we can recover the data from whichever point that we want. We'll discuss more about that in later classes. There is read replicas to transfer workload to other instances. Now, what is the meaning of read replica? Do you guys know about it? Any idea about read replica?
So the requests which come from the other systems to read data from the databases, right? The SQL tables or whatever it is. So when it is replicated to another instance, one instance can do the major operations, and this read operations can be migrated to the other instance so that the load will not be on the main system, kind of.
Exactly. So let's say if this is our main database, I'm taking a replica of this. Now I'm saying this is a read replica. That means now if you are getting from user, you get read operations, write operations, right? So all the write operations will go to only main database. And from here, I can create multiple read replicas. Okay, so your read traffic can be distributed here. So what happens? The read request will be extremely faster. So we can create a read replicas uh, by using Cloud SQL. Okay, we can also export data by using G-Cloud utility or Cloud Console in SQL CSV format. Okay. Okay, now let us do
One question.
Yeah, please.
So the database migration service, right, is that a utility provided by GCP?
Yes, that
Is
is
that some
utility
tool
provided.
provided by? Okay.
You can say it is a tool on GCP tool.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. One minute. Okay, I'm on my GCP console now. Now you scroll down under more products, you will see there is storage databases. Yeah, under databases, you see there are a lot of databases here. Under that, you see there's something called as a SQL database. Okay. Now you see the SQL database page has come up. Is there any instance? As of now, I don't have any instance here. Okay. If there's an instance, we will see that SQL instance here. Now, if you want to create a new instance, I can select this create instance here, or else I can also select this option create instance here. As soon as we do that, again, now let's say if you have multiple projects, you have to select in which project you have to create. As of now, in which project I'm creating demo dev app 1. This is the project that I'm creating this database in. Now there are three different types of engines available. One is a MySQL engine, second one is a PostgreSQL engine, third one is a SQL Server engine. Now, if you're on premises, if you're using a MySQL relational database, and if you want to migrate to GCP, you have to use a MySQL engine. These are the different types of SQL engines that are available on GCP cloud. For this hands-on demonstration, we will choose MySQL engine. Select MySQL engine. And then we have a lot of options here that we need to fill in to create this particular database. Let's say the first and foremost thing, we need to give a name to a database. I'll say demo db gcp, and then we need to give a password. Okay, type in your password, or else you can just select generate as well. It will automatically generate for us, but as of now I want to choose the password. Okay, or you can just say
So Satish,
no password, then there
Satish,
will
if you
not be
see,
any password. So it says without a root password, this instance will allow anyone to connect with a full administrative privileges. So set a root password to ensure. So it is saying that if you don't set a password, anybody can connect to this. Okay, so we can leave as it is, or if you want, you can give a password. Now it says here there are in the MySQL database also there are multiple versions of it. So it's not mandatory that every time you have to choose the latest version. It depends on what kind of version that you are using on premises, if you are moving it, or else it also depends on what kind of application you are connecting this database, and your application code uh, is compatible which kind of version. You need to get that data information from your developer. Let's say if your developer says that, hey, go for MySQL version 5.7. Okay, let's choose MySQL 5.7 version. And what you are using this database for? Is it for a production environment? Is it for a development environment? Or is it a sandbox? Okay, what is sandbox? It is like just checking whether it will work or not. Okay, I mean, it's like kind of, if you want to do a POC to understand how it behaves, you can choose a sandbox. I'm selecting development for this particular use case. Now we can also choose this database that you're creating, that should be in which region. Okay, now we can select the region. Wherever your end users are there, you can select a region which is close to them. Let's say for this demo, let's choose US Central one, that is okay. And you can also specify whether this database should be there on a single zone or a multiple zones. Okay, if it is there on multiple zones, you'll get high availability. Now if you see, if you select single zone, you can see here availability single. If you select multiple zones, you can also see availability is high available and it is multiple zones. Okay, and you can specify. So here the system is automatically taking the zones if you don't specify. We can also go and say second should be there in this. Okay, primary zone, let's say this one. Secondary zone, it is not matching, so let's say central B. So we can manually also specify what should be the our secondary zone and the primary zone and the secondary zone. Okay, let's see multiple other options. Now you see what should be the CPUs, how many CPUs, how much RAM. Okay, it is by default it is having 4 CPUs, 16 RAM. Let's say if I want to give custom 4 GB RAM, we can give that. The minimum is 3.75. Okay, let's say if I want to give 5, we can also give it. CPUs from 1 to 96 max, we have discussed, right? So we can also give that, and different types of instance also there: lightweight, standard, high memory. Okay, lightweight. Okay, standard, we can choose whatever type of machine that we need. Storage, we can give either HDD or SSD. So HDD is for low performance. You see IOPS how many is coming. Read IOPS is 3000, write IOPS is 15,000. SSD, you see you're getting a fixed 3000 of 15, 3000 of 15,000 read and write operations. Okay, now if I change the 200 GB storage, you see the IOPS are changing. It became like 6,000. Okay, if I change 100, based on the CPU, based on the configuration that you select, the IOPS will keep on changing. Okay. And enable automatic storage increase. That means if I enable this option, if this storage space fills up, it will automatically enable. Okay. Connections, whether you require a private IP or a public IP or not. Okay, let us give a public IP, and if you want to put that any on custom network, we can add a network here. Okay, now you see the data protection option here. So choose backups, automate backups. So now we have discussed that we can automate backups by giving a time, right? Let's say 5:30 a.m. Okay, if I go to advanced options, okay, how many backups we have to take, okay, where you have to take the backup, all these things will be available here. uh, okay, let's leave that, that's okay. And then enable delete protection. So I will uncheck this. So when you guys are doing the hands-on exercise, you guys also uncheck this, because if it is checked, you'll not be able to delete it. Okay, so uncheck that. Maintenance, what is the window for maintenance? If you give any window, whenever there is an maintenance update, it will automatically do. If I give it on Sunday, it will only do on Sunday. We can also mention the time when it has to do updates. Okay, and yeah, all other options we can leave it as defaults. And let us go ahead and create this instance. Let's select option, create instance. It is saying that instance is being created. Okay, this will about take a minute or a two for the instance to be created. Let me refresh this. Okay, let me, yeah, I'm there on the SQL. You see there's an instance here. Okay, what is the status of this instance? It is still creating. Okay, let us wait for a moment. Instance is being updated. Let us wait for a 30 to 40 seconds here. So we should get the public IP address, because we should see how to connect to this database. This will take about another minute. Let me refresh this page. Okay, it is still creating. Instance is being updated. We need to wait for another minute. Let's wait for another 30 seconds. The database is creating here. Okay, now if you see our database is created. Let me click on this database. Now you will see lot of options on the left where there is overview. Okay, you can see the complete overview, and then query insights, connections, users, database, etc., etc. Let us concentrate on connections. Now let us first understand how to connect with this database. Okay, there are multiple ways. One simple thing that we will see is that how to connect with the cloud shell. Okay, now to work with the cloud shell, you see on the top there's a kind of a CLI button here. So activate cloud shell. Once you click on that, we will be able to run the commands from here itself. Okay, now this is provisioning as a way how to create this, connect to this database that we have created. It is giving us a shell. It says since you haven't used the cloud shell for a while, it might take time to unarchive your disk. Okay, so because this is the first time, it is going to take about a minute for the cloud shell to be activated, and then we can run all the commands from here. We can connect to the database that we created from here itself. Okay, now you see I'm able to connect to the cloud shell. Okay, now if I go here inside the overview, if you go to connectivity tests, no, let's go inside the overview. Okay, you see there's something called as connect to this instance. Okay, you see it is saying open cloud shell. I can just click here. You see it is actually giving me a syntax. It is saying G Cloud SQL Connect. Okay, and this is the name of the database. What kind of user? A root user hyphen quit. Okay, this already gave a syntax. If I just run this syntax, it will work. Okay, but let us try to connect with a different method. Okay, let's say first of all, let's see whether we have our MySQL. So it is a MySQL database, right? So on this particular server, there should be MySQL. Let's see whether MySQL is there or not. Let's type in MySQL. Okay, we know that MySQL is there. It is not connecting, but let's say MySQL hyphen version. Let us know the version of the MySQL. It is saying MySQL version is 8.0. It is there on Linux. Okay. Now let us try to connect with this IP address. If I have to connect with this IP address, first of all, I need to do something called as IP whitelisting. Okay. Let us see whether we'll be able to connect or not first. Let's use the syntax MySQL hyphen H. I'll give the IP address. Let me copy the IP address here. Paste the IP address. Okay, 34.172.175.44. Okay, hyphen u stands for root user. What kind of user? I'll say username is root, and hyphen p stands for password. Enter. It is asking for a password. Okay, there is no, I did not give a password, right? So I just entered. So it is trying to connect. It'll take a long time, but it will not connect because we have not whitelisted. That means we have not allowed to connect to this IP address. So first of all, we need to do something called as IP whitelisting. Okay, we'll wait for another 10 seconds and see that we will not be able to connect, and then we will see how to do a whitelisting of IP address. if I have to do a whitelisting of IP address, first of all, this server where we need to whitelist, I need to know the IP address of that. How do I know the IP address of that? Okay, let me first cancel this command. Okay, let me do Control C and let me go to Google and type in IP file. It will be IPIFI. Okay, you'll get this IP Wi-Fi and then copy this curl, go to the console and just run this. Enter. You see, this is the IP address of this particular server. Now, for this server, let us whitelist our database IP address. How to do that? Copy this IP address. Okay. Now go to connections. Under connections, you'll see networking. Under that, you see under authorized networks, select option add network. Give a name like let's say this is cloud shell, and then give the IP address here and select that. Okay. Now this has whitelisted and let us select save. Okay, it is saying that editing. So let's say if you have to connect through one of your on-premises servers, you have to add your on-premises server IP address here. Then only you'll be able to connect to your database from here. Okay. Now once it updates, let us run this command mysql -h IP address again, and let's see whether you're able to connect or not. Okay, the editing is done. Now let us run that syntax again. Enter, enter, because there is no password. Now you see I'm able to enter to MySQL. Now here if I want to see the databases which are already there, there is an option like show data basis. Enter. So these are already couple of default databases which are already there, like information schema, MySQL, performance schema, sys. These are all default databases which is already there. That means I logged into MySQL database on this particular server. That means whatever database that I have created, I'm able to log into that. Now we can also see that here, if you see under overview, there is something called as databases. We can go on to the databases there. If we see, we can see that same databases, whatever you see here, we can also see the same databases there. All right, now let me exit out of it. Okay, and now let me show you guys how to migrate the data from your local database, let's say from your on-premises database to GCP. Let me list down the steps first and then we will do that. Okay, what I'm going to basically do is that on my laptop, let's consider this as on-premises server. Okay, from there, let's put the data uh, onto GCS buckets. Okay, from GCS buckets, upload to the MySQL database that we created. Okay, MySQL database. Okay, now for that, let me first of all go and show you guys the database which is there on my local laptop. Now where it is stored, let's go to files. Okay, let's go to local disk. In the local disk there will be program files. You have to install MySQL for this. Okay, and inside that you will see Microsoft SQL Server. Go in there, you see Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL. Okay, not this. It will be MySQL because I didn't install Microsoft SQL Server, right? I have installed MySQL. Go to MySQL, and inside this you see MySQL Server 5.7. Go there, and inside that there is bin. Okay, and you confirm there is something called as MySQL dump.exe. Okay, so now you see, let me copy this path. Okay, and let me go to CMD on my local laptop. Okay, and go to this path there. Okay, let me go to this path, enter. Okay, now let me connect to MySQL database. To connect to MySQL database, use MySQL -u -root -p, the password. Enter. It is asking for a password. Let me type in the password. Okay, I have given my password. It says wrong. The reason I've used hyphen root, hyphen to the root. There is no hyphen to the root. Enter. Okay, now I'm able to connect to the MySQL database. Okay, now after connecting, let me see what all the databases are there. This is my local database. I'm using something called as show databases. Enter. You see, these are the different databases which are there. Okay, now let me create a new database so that we will see this database, whatever we are going to create, will migrate them. Okay, I will create a database by name demo. Let's see. To create, it is create database. Give a name. I'll give the database name as demo. Okay, and enter. It is saying that a database is created. Let us see the database is created or not. Let's say show databases. We will see a demo database is also there. Okay, now I want to use that demo database. To use that, use demo. This is the database name, right? Enter. Now it has told database is changed. That means I'm using that particular database now. Okay, now what I'll do, I will create a simple table here. In that, let's say, to create a table, create table. This is a syntax to create a table, and table name I'll give it as let's say demo. Not demo, let's say student. Okay, and then what all column should be there in the student. Okay, column name, student name. Column 1 I'll put it as student ID, and it should be a integer. So data type is int, comma. Next, I'll say last name. Let's say this should be varchar data type, and I'll give it as 255, comma. Enter. Say first name varchar. Okay, and let me give one more column, city. I'll say varchar. Okay, and that's all. I will close this and then enter. Okay, it's saying query is okay. That means I'm able to create a table with the name student, and that student has multiple columns. Let me insert one row into this. How can I insert? Use insert into, what is the table name? Table name is student, right? Student and values. Okay. Now the value is student ID is 1, and first name is, let's say, first name is Ram, last name is, let's say, Krishna, and the city is Hyderabad. Okay. And then colon, enter. It says one row got affected. If I want, I can add one more row. So I will add student ID as 2, Hari, last name is Krishna, that's fine. I will put this as Bangalore. Okay, enter. Okay, now there are 2 rows in this particular database. So this database is there on my local system. Okay. Now let me exit out of this. Okay, let me exit out of this database. Okay, now let me create a dump out of this database. How to create a dump? Let's say MySQL dump -u root -p. Okay, what is my database name? My database name is demo. Where I want to send it? I want to send it as backup.sql. Enter. Okay, it is access denied because of the path. Let us do that in a little different way. Let us give a path instead of directly copying it. Let me show you how to do that. Let me go here. Let's go to downloads. Okay, let me take this path. Go here. Let's go to the command prompt. I'm pasting that path there, and I'm just creating it as backup.sql. So basically what I'm doing here, whatever is there in this database, that database I'm creating it as a file called as backup.sql. So whatever databases, whatever tables is there, everything it will store here. Okay, I'll show that. Enter. It is asking for a password. Okay, now basically in this location this file has been stored. Let me go back there. You see, it has stored this file. Let me open this and show what is there in this. Open with Visual Studio Code. I think it will come up. Now you see, it is saying that this is a database dump. Okay, it has table by name student. Okay, you have to create a table like this. Okay, this is the data which is there. Everything it has created as a file. Okay, now we have to send this to GCP, right? Now let me go to GCS buckets. Okay, go to GCS buckets. Where is this? Okay, cloud storage, go to buckets. Okay, let us use this bucket. And upload objects here. Go to upload files. upload files. Hang on a minute. The system is getting hung. Let us do one thing. Let's create a new bucket. There's a problem with this particular bucket. Let's go to buckets and let's open this in a different console, because we have to make sure that our database and this bucket should be there in a same a region. Now my database, let me go here. It is there in which region? It is there in US Central 1A. Okay, let me go to buckets, select option create my bucket for DB migration. Okay, continue. It should be there in US region. Okay, region is it is in US Central, right? US Central one. So let me select. Where is this? Okay, I'm selecting US Central one. Continue. I'll leave everything as default. Select option create. Confirm. And we are creating a bucket. Bucket is created. Let me upload files. Now what files I want to upload? I want to upload my files, that SQL file. Let me unshare my screen for a moment and then upload this. Okay, now I have uploaded my backup.sql file in this bucket. Let me go to that bucket. You see, there's a file here. Okay. Now this file, now let me go to the database that I created. Go to SQL. Go to this database. Now, if you see the databases here, you'll only see, you see these four databases are there. Okay. Now, once I go to overview, on the top, you see there's an option called as import. Now, the import, I can go to browse. So, my bucket name is my bucket for demo, right? This is the bucket. Now, this is the file. Let me copy that, select this. All right. And CSV, the file is there in a CSV format, specified in a SQL file. Okay, select option import. So if we have any other database here, we can select that, or else whatever database it is there in this file, it will create that. Select option import. It is saying importing from backup.sql to this. It is basically going to create that. Import failed. Let's go details. At line no database selected. Okay, close. Let's go to import again. Let's go to databases. Let's create a database. Let's say database name is student. Create. Okay, now let's go to query overview and then select option import. Browse. My SQL file is there in this bucket. Backup SQL. Click on select. Scroll down. Now you see the database is displayed. I'm selecting this database by name student. Okay, now it is saying importing backup SQL to this particular MySQL database. You see now it is successful. Now if I go into this databases, now you see there is a student database also. Okay, you see there's a student database also. Okay, now let's go ahead and connect to the database one more time. I'm opening the terminal. Meanwhile, let's go to, okay, uh, enter, give a password, enter. Access denied for this user. I don't know whether I'm entering a right password or not. That's okay. Let's go to databases here. Let's go to connections under networking. I think under overview, there's open cloud shell, enter, authorize. I actually forgot my password. All right, that's okay anyway. So now if you see the databases, we have our database here also. We can start using this table. I mean, you can connect to MySQL and see what is there in the table. You'll be able to see the uh, data we have uploaded. So that is how we can migrate the data from your on-premises to the cloud SQL. All right, I want